how to study for a test. So how are you going to study for the coming test? Over the years, I've found a couple tidbits I can give you guys that seem to really help most students. Now realize that studying, it's kind of a personal thing. It's kind of, everyone kind of has their own style. Everyone kind of has what works for them and what doesn't. But on my side of things, I would list several kind of key studying components that you could check out. If you're having problems with this, or you're unsure, or it seems like you're studying a ton and every test you're not doing that well, my list, I think at the top, I would first focus on your notes. The notes in class are key. And before you study them, you got to take good notes, right? So it really starts in the classroom. Are you taking good notes? Now, there's different amounts of notes for different people. Some people are fine just taking a little 10 lines worth of notes for the entire lecture and they're good. Other people take pages. And it really just goes with whatever works for you. So just mess around with those different styles and just be honest with yourself, and whatever one works, just keep doing it. Whatever you feel comfortable with in terms of taking notes. So first and foremost, not only do you take notes, but then you use them to study. On my little pyramid of success, I would put studying your notes as the number one most important thing to do for a test. It ain't the textbook. It's your notes in class. I know for me, that's honestly most of the test. Yes, the textbook's in there a little bit, but really it's that give and take in real time in the classroom. It's like, hey, show me that you remember what we were talking about in the classroom and that you understood, right? And your notes are the key to that. Now, underneath in my pyramid of success in studying, I would, after notes, put specialty things you went over during that part of the semester. And what I mean by that is maybe there's a video or two that the professor really talked about, like dude, you got to watch these 2 videos, right? And then also maybe there were 1 or 2 additional readings. I find that a lot of times the additional readings are more important than the textbook. So I would study those. And again, how do you study those? You want to take notes when you're reading those or watching those. Not too much. I don't think most professors are asking really specific things on readings or videos. Like, what was the name of the guy in scene 26? Who cares? But they're going to ask things about the overall idea. You basically want to be able to answer, what was the video about? What were the 4 main ideas that the video covered? Right? Same with these specialized readings. It ain't about what was on page 27. It's first, what was the article about? And then, what are the 3 or 4 main points? That's the kind of stuff to take notes on, to kind of note to yourself. You don't want to fall into the trap with this sort of stuff of taking too many notes. I see this, where students just take reams of notes on the readings, and they're trying really hard, which I really appreciate. But it's almost too much, because then you just can't tell the forest for the trees. You just have a ton of data swarming around in your skull, and you're not able to focus. And as you're going to see, a lot of what I talk about right here is about focused studying, right? Really getting the key concepts and key terms. Speaking of which, key terms. Key terms are key in your learning. So make sure you have them. A lot of classes will have a study guide, which is really a key terms list, let's be honest. So as the professor talks throughout the semester about these various terms, make sure to write them down, right? And whenever a professor turns to write, they're deciding to lose contact with their audience. And what I mean by that is, it's actually super important, whatever they're writing on the board, They think it's important enough to lose contact with you, break contact, write it on board, and then attempt to get you back as an audience. And that can be tough. But what I just wrote down was so important, meaning write it down. Make sure you've written down every single thing that a professor has written down on the whiteboard, if they're using that. PowerPoints is a little different. Depends on the professor. For someone like me, I don't use that many words on my PowerPoint. I think that's the better way in teaching. But the key terms will be on the PowerPoint as well. Make sure you get those, and then I'll explain what the key terms mean. So you write the key term based on what you see, and then you write what I'm saying, right? Get those key terms. To me, underneath it all, most classes really are built upon key terms at their core. So how do you study them? People have different ways. Old school flashcards, man, that can work for you. Old school flashcards, there is nothing wrong with that. Don't think that there's some app that replaces old school flashcards. There's not. Nothing replaces hard work. And I do find that for a lot of students, the flashcard thing works. Or you can have all the key terms and definitions listed, and you can cover your hand. You can use your hand to cover like the definition and look at the word and really think to yourself what it is. Say it out loud. Right, the definition. Don't just think it in your head, because you can cheat in your own head. Say it out loud, make sure it makes sense, and then look. Try and catch yourself up with the key terms. That's really cool. And then, as you're studying the key terms, there's also going to be usually a couple key examples that go with the key terms. Make sure you know those. It's usually not every example, but there's usually one or two big ones. Know those. And then, with your key terms, you can test yourself on like the main examples. If you can talk about the main examples using key terms, golden. That's really good, right? If it's like ancient Egypt is the example, and you can use key terms about preservation or something like that to talk about ancient Egypt. Oh, King Tut was found in primary context. That's really great. That I find is a really good way to test yourself. Is your studying working, and it really focuses it on the key terms and the key examples. It's not just some smorgasbord of everything, right? This focus. I find that students that are just starting in college tend to kind of mess that up. They don't know how to focus. Speaking of that, make sure you study evenly. What I mean by that is, let's say there's 7 chapters for the next test. And 7 weeks of notes. What I find students do, especially with the textbook, they'll read chapter 1 really well, and then some of chapter 2, and then 3 through 7 they read 20 minutes before the test starts. It's uneven. You don't want to do that, right? You want to even it out. Just give yourself some time. Dude, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on chapter 1, and I'm going to spend 20 minutes on chapter 2, and so on. Right? So just make sure you get it all, because it's all going to be probably equally important. Look back at the key terms. Remember what the professor was talking about. Most of the time, what the professor is talking about is the main stuff. So study evenly. That's I've seen that a lot of times, right? Speaking of reading and the textbook. So my pyramid of success is, as we remember, the notes in class, the specialty things, the special readings or the videos, and then underneath is the textbook. The textbook comes last. Make sure you read the textbook, but know how to read the textbook. It doesn't necessarily mean read the whole thing. I know. I said it. Here's what you do. Read the summary first. Usually most textbooks will have a summary at the end. Read the summary. Then go back and read the introduction. Then fill in with the rest inside the textbook. And the professor has probably told you guys something like, hey, this example isn't really that important, focus here. That's where you want to do it. So you read the summary, read the introduction, and then read the bits of the chapter, especially the ones that you know are going to pertain to the next test. Read the ones that go with the key terms, right? Those subsections of each chapter. Because I know, like in archaeology, the textbook, I tend to focus on the key terms quite a bit, and really, it's just a restating of a lot of the key terms I've done in class, which is actually good for you guys to hear the author of the textbook say the same thing that I've said, because you'll hear it in a different tone. That's really good. But there's a ton of examples often in the textbook, and I say things to the students like, don't worry about the examples. Just use the examples I talk about. Just that is major. So if examples in the textbook come up, know that you don't have to worry about them. Skip them. It's okay. You're not doing something wrong or unethical or cruel or cheating. If you just skip what the professor tells you to skip and focus. See, it's all about focus. If you focus on your studying, good things will come. I'm sort of trying to think of some last bits and pieces. Group work, or group studying, I should say. Group studying is all right. A little's fine, a lot's too much. Because group studying, you can kind of cheat your way out of learning anything, meaning everyone else is kind of participating and you're kind of not. And you feel like you're getting stuff, but you're kind of not. So test yourself. If you've talked about all this stuff, because it'll sound fine, your friends will talk about it like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, evolution, yeah, I got that. But then say the definition of evolution out loud to yourself in your car or this kind of thing. You know, test yourself. You might not be able to do it. So I think a little group studying is great because it gets you into it, gets you in the mood. And a lot of times in group studying, there's just like a lot of talking and hanging out. Understandable, but it's not the best studying. So make sure you also find time alone to study. Fly solo. And make sure you don't have a lot of other crap on. Like the television can't be on. Oh, on your cell phone, you're just checking it, but you're kind of reading. You have to make yourself focus. It's like, for this next hour, I am studying this. No external circumstance. I'm right in the moment studying. I think if you do these kind of things and think about these kind of things, I think your situation will improve.